Hello and welcome to Mentors Coaching FM, the show that helps you tame the business beast and build a marketing machine so that you can focus on helping your clients get the transformation you promise. I'm Gail Seymour, founder of Mentors Coaching, the results-oriented growth platform where learning providers of all stripes can create and deliver courses and programs that handle scheduling, payments and delivery all in one place with no monthly fee. Just a simple, low commission structure that means if you don't earn, you don't pay. Now today I have with me Scott Aaron, who is a coach, author. You've written 5 books, Scott. So you're well versed in that area, but you're also the go-to guy for organic marketing and attracting leads without spending an awful lot of money, which is something that's really going to interest a lot of my people. So before we get into that or anything else that happens to come up, I'd really love for you to share your story, who you are, where you're at, and how you got there.
Well, Gail, first, thanks for the opportunity to be on here. And yes, my name is Scott Aaron, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now I live in Marlton, New Jersey, which is about 40 minutes outside of Philadelphia. So I just went across the bridge. And I've been an entrepreneur for the better part of more than half my life. I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. So I jokingly tell people that I've been psychologically unemployable since day one. And I learned that my great-grandfather was an entrepreneur. He had his own butcher shop in downtown Philadelphia. My grandfather was a pharmacist. He'll be 94 at the beginning of next year. And he was a pharmacist up until he was about 83 years old. Owned his own pharmacy at one point. My father followed suit, owned multiple businesses. And at 18 and a half, almost 19, is when I got my introduction to entrepreneurship. And it was done in a very unorthodox way. My father had made some bad business decisions that actually ended up landing him in federal prison for 2.5 years. And between my father's sentencing and when he would eventually go away for 2.5 years to serve his sentence, he actually purchased a failing fitness club in downtown Philadelphia, a gym. And my father's passion was always working out, health and wellness. He, I can remember as a little kid going to the gym with him and watching him work out with his trainer. And he did some competitive bodybuilding. And I was an athlete, but I was more of a hippie. I used to just go around to festivals and listen to music. And, I was a very active, teenager as well, loved sports, but really didn't have a drive or motivation to lift weights and all of that. But that all changed. Obviously, my father turned the keys over to me as almost a sophomore in college to run the family business to support my mom and my sister. And I learned firsthand a number of things. Well, number one, how to grow and run and operate a business from the ground up. Number two, how to be resilient in that, life and business are not a straight line. There's going to be twists and turns and ups and downs. And number three, how your story doesn't have to define you. It could catapult you to doing bigger and better things. And I love sharing my story because what I'm doing today, nearly 26 years later, is completely different than what I did before. I got my start in entrepreneurship as a gym owner. I was a personal trainer, sports nutritionist. I did competitive bodybuilding, and that was an 18-year career. And at around the 15-year mark, when I was around 33, just about 10 years ago, I decided to venture into the world of online marketing because I was looking to streamline my business. I was looking to create more work-life integration and balance because I was at the gym all day long. I literally was there at 5 a.m. until 9 p.m. at night. 2012, I became a father. My son just turned 10. And I had to reprioritize my life because life is not meant to be worked all the time. It's meant to be lived. And it took, a good while to kind of wrap my head around the concept, but I've always been big into human connection. I've always been really inspired, helping people change and create new habits and new outcomes. But I've always been a problem solver. And this goes back to my time in the gym, because when someone would walk into the gym, they were looking for a personal change. They either needed to lose weight or get new healthy habits or learn a diet plan or put on muscle or compete in a contest. So I was that provider of a solution for the problem that person was having. So it was ingrained in me to solve other people's problems by solving my own first. And that's what makes a great coach. A great coach, it's not about the certification that you have or the piece of paper that goes along with it. I always tell people it's the journey that you go on to better improve yourself and work out the kinks in your own hose where everything can flow in the best way possible, which then certifies you and gives you the credibility to then teach others how to do the same thing. And that's when I was inspired to jump online and grow an online business. And I did it through the means of social media in the beginning, Facebook and Instagram, but I always felt a pull and a draw to LinkedIn because it was more of a professional networking and lead generation platform. And I knew from day one that if you don't have leads in any business, whether it's brick and mortar or online, you're out of business, because lead generation is where connection can be formed and know, like, and trust. And the acquisition of clients or the exchange of monetary value in something you provide, that's where it happens. And I got incredible traction from the get-go on LinkedIn and started helping some friends with what was working for me. And one suggested, listen, I'm getting great results based off of the things that you told me to do. You should be teaching other people how to do this. And then it was like that light bulb moment where I'm like, oh my God, yeah. If this worked for me and it's now working for someone else, I've created a system. I've created a flow. And that's when I decided to launch, and this is towards the end of 2013, early 2014, the programs that I have, coaching, consulting, all the books that I've written, and my core foundation, myself and my wife and the business and the company that we run, is to help as many people as possible not only fall in love with the business that they have, but to fall in love with the life that they've created from that business. And that's everything that we're doing today.
Excellent. I have to say that something that made me chuckle very early on in that was you said that you were psychologically unemployable from early on. And I've always said that I ended up being an entrepreneur, not because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but because I was traditionally unemployable. And so it just made me chuckle that there's that echo of that whole, well, I can't work for somebody else, so what am I going to do? So the other question that I wanted to ask you is, you also mentioned that you were a bit of a workaholic, if you like, that you were in the gym all the time and that business was all there all the time. And so you switched into online marketing, which basically means you bring the business home with you. And
Correct.
So how was that transition for you? Because I know sometimes you think, oh, great, I work from home, and you think initially it's going to give you a lot of extra time, where if you have that workaholic tendency, then actually it can be quite a rough transition. So how did you find that?
Well, to your point, people can be addicted to anything. They can be addicted to drugs, alcohol, work. And it's really funny, at the time that we are recording this, I did a post a poll on LinkedIn about how people feel their work-life balance is. Because for me, I didn't know what work-life balance was. I knew the more that I worked, the more that I would make. And that was the mindset that I had. So, as a personal trainer, you're an hourly contractor. So for every hour that's booked on your calendar, so I could literally look at my schedule and say, okay, I have 10 sessions booked at $80 an hour. I can make $800 today. Now, if I compound that, if I do that every day, Monday through Friday, that's $4,000 a week. And if I do that every month, that's $16,000 a month. But what people don't realize, like, that's 50 hours a week. That's 200 hours a month. Now, was I working 10 hours a day? No, I was working 15 hours a day. So was I working Monday through Friday? No, I was working Monday through Saturday. I had one day off. And when I look back on that journey, it's funny because my wife, when she left her corporate career, she was a mid-level executive / manager, team leader at 2 Fortune 50 companies. And she left the one to go to another because she wanted this more harmonious work-life balance, and it didn't exist there either. And she always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So she had the revelation, like, if I'm going to really want this work-life balance, I'm going to have to create it myself. So as the story goes, she was reading a thread on Reddit, and it was an accountant that was sharing a story about how he left his corporate career in accounting to run a house cleaning business from his phone remotely. And he would hire cleaners, and everything was done on an app on his phone. And he turned it into a 6-figure business working from home. Something that she read in that thread just triggered that journey for her. And she put her 2 weeks in notice that next week. And she started her own house cleaning business from her phone and grew it to $150,000 a year within about a year and a half. And she called it Work-Life Balance House Cleaning. Now, we have since closed that business because, again, there are a lot of things that go into having a contract-based business. But what I'll say is that when I was working my way out of the gym and she was kind of full steam ahead with her house cleaning business, she was really, really good at that work-life integration. She had strict hours of operation where she basically did all of her stuff from like 7 to 9 in the morning, and that was it. 2 hours, right? And then she put out little fires throughout the day. When I was transitioning into the online space, I basically converted what I did in person to online. So yeah, I wasn't in the gym as much and eventually closed the gym in 2016, but I replaced those hours for doing Zoom after Zoom after Zoom after Zoom from home. I mean, it was great being at home, but I just recreated and reinvented the wheel the same exact way. And it wasn't until I started to understand that if I want to be a present husband, I want to be a present father, I want to be a present friend, I'm going to have to create time to do that. And it's interesting, as I started to really put boundaries, what I did, and it started with creating hours of operation. And, I strict guidelines. I don't do anything before 10 a.m. and I don't do anything after 6 p.m. So whatever I can squeeze into those 8 hours, and sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not much. And then coincidentally, when the pandemic hit nearly 2.5 years ago, my son was going into 2nd grade, and we had to remote teach him. He was in remote learning. He couldn't go into school. So on Wednesdays and Fridays, I had to take the whole first half of the day off to supervise and help him with school. So I had put, these strict barriers where, people couldn't do anything on those specific days. And I said to my wife, I said, even though he's going back to school now, I've figured out my schedule now on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and our business continues to grow. I'm continuing to work less. Why don't I just Wednesdays and Fridays off, even though he's back in school? And then I started thinking to myself, I'm like, oh man, that's great. 3 days a week, 4 days off a week, which means I have 16 days off a month, which means I'm off half the month, which means I'm only working half of the year. A light bulb went off. I'm like, there it is. If people can't get on my calendar on the days of which I'm working, which are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, then it's going to have to go to the next week. And, Nancy, when we really started, really growing and scaling our business, and now we have 10 team members, she had to reintegrate her work-life balance structure. And I obviously helped her with that. And now we have the same schedule, but it took a little bit because she loves what she does. She literally could sit at her computer all day long and just jam out and just create. She's a very creative person. But I said to her, like, sometimes I have to go in there and I'll knock on her, window in her office, and I'll be like, all right, dinner time, let's go, 6 o'clock. Let's, whatever you got done, it's done. You got to wait till tomorrow. And we've really leaned into this notion of working less, living more. And I also love the European standards, because most European countries, they only have 4-day work weeks. They work Monday through Thursday. Everybody's off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I said, well, why don't we create our own European structure right here in the States, where we only work Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. We're off Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But it's also given us that balance where Thursday is one of our heavy lifting days. And if we want to go on vacation, we go on vacation from Friday to Wednesday. We're not missing anything. We're back on Thursday to pick up right where we left off. So it's been a process. It's been a journey. And I've broken the habits of being myself, as Joe Dispenza says. And I had to do that. It took time. And I still have to go over those things over and over again, because Nancy and I love what we do. I could do what I do all day long, all day, every day. But I know that nothing is ever off your plate. And everyone thinks, oh, once I get this done, oh, I'm going to be free. There's always something to do to work on your business. And when I started to realize that, I'm like, you know what? This can wait till tomorrow. This can wait till next week. This can wait till the next day. And you get yourself into this very, very consistent flow. And Nancy and I actually talked about this morning at breakfast. Anyone can adopt the schedule that we have. If somebody wanted to work 6 hours a day, 3 days a week, that's 18 hours a week. You're telling me you can't get what it is that you have to get done for your business working 18 hours a week? It's a fallacy. You don't have to work every single day to get all the things done in your business to grow and scale it and make the income and have the impact that you want. You have to set the boundaries and you have to stick to it.
Absolutely. It's also, I think, the other thing that we're kind of going to move on to now, though, is that you can set the boundaries and set the time. And obviously, sometimes it takes a little bit of getting used to and to build your own self-discipline muscle to stick to those rules. And I know even now, sometimes I'm guilty, because I'm one of those who can just sit and just keep going. I just want to finish this. Just want to finish this. I'm, better now than I was. So that's a good thing. But it's not just about having the time. The other thing that you've mentioned quite a lot is having the workflows that makes it possible to do what you need to do in that time. Because if you've only got, if you limit yourself to 18 hours, for example, or even if you limit yourself to 30 hours or to 20 hours or to whatever the number that you happen to choose is, it's the organization of the time and the structuring of the tasks that makes it possible to achieve so much more in that shorter time frame, because you just trim the waste. So with that in mind, what are the mistakes that you see people making in terms of their social media and their use of time? What are the ways that people can trim that time and really bring it down to scale?
So I think number one is I would say two specific things. And I would say one is more on the person, and the other, I think, is a tool that they can use. So the first thing is creating clear and defined hours of operation, which I talked about a few minutes back. So choosing when you're actually going to start doing your work and when you're going to start ending your workday. Now, for Nancy and myself, we begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and we stop at 6 p.m. at night. Now, sometimes we start later and sometimes we end earlier. I don't always have calls till 6 o'clock. Sometimes I'm done at 4. Sometimes my first call isn't until 12, but people can book in between those times. Reason for that is we get up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and the first 4 hours of our day is just us. We get ready, we take the dogs out, we work out every single morning, we make breakfast, and we just hang out until we have to go start what we need to do for that day. And we have dinner together every single night. Whether she cooks or I cook, we take turns. We make sure that we're having dinner between 6 and 6:30 every single night. The workday is done. We completely just disconnect, whether it's watching some programs or some sporting events. That's our time. So, and we usually go to bed around 10:30. So 8.5 hours of our day is just us, just focusing on the life side of things. So the first thing I would suggest for that person is to really create those strict boundaries of when you start and when you stop your workday. In regards to social media, having a content scheduling platform. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, Hootsuite, Buffer, If This Then That. But my wife and I, we actually have our own. It's called BYOB Social. We worked with some developers, and what we wanted to do is first we created it for ourselves and our clients where they can pre-schedule their content up to 7 different platforms. And about a year and a half ago, we actually brought it to market and have 100, close to 150 people now using our platform. And what this allows you to do is to not spend all day, every day on social media, where you're having to create content and you're scrolling and trolling. We like to create more time freedom for people because that's the most valuable commodity. And we were reading a marketing newsletter, and it was going over kind of like the non-negotiables, the essentials in running a business, whether it's online or brick and mortar or whatever it is. One of the key is a content scheduler. So if you can imagine hopping on to a platform like ours or Buffer or Hootsuite, and say you're most active on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, just imagine for a second sitting down one day a month and pre-scheduling your content for the next month. Getting your posts out there, your quote tiles, your infographics, whatever it is that you're doing. Think about all the time that you're now able to save yourself to work on your business and not in your business. Because if you're having to manage all the different nuances of running your business plus social media, and a lot of people end up hiring out a social media manager, which I don't always agree with because they try to quote unquote get to know your voice, right? No one does it like you do. People can try to figure out who you are in your voice, but it's never you. And the thing that we suggest, our clients and the users of our subscription membership to just take a Sunday a month, the Sunday before the turn of the calendar. You log on to a platform, whatever you're using, you sit down for 2 hours or 90 minutes and you start scheduling out your content. You theme it out, whether it's posting 3 times a week, 4 times a week across the platforms that you want. And then by the time you're done that 90 minutes, your entire month is set. And now that gives you that time to focus on creating things or supporting your network, being in creation mode instead of management mode, which is where you don't want to be. So for the people that are looking to leverage social media, whatever platform it is, your content is what drives your visibility, and your visibility is what drives trust. And your trust is what drives people to move closer to you so you can acquire them and help them for what it is that you're providing. And when you can take that off of your plate, when you can have all of your content pre-scheduled, I can't explain to people enough how freeing that is. And I'll share one quick story. So my wife is a cancer survivor. She was diagnosed at 36 with kidney cancer. This was last October. She beat it. She had surgery. They removed 10% of her kidney. No treatment after. She's had a clean bill of health since. She gets checkups every 6 months. And what I can share with you is because of our posting platform, before her surgery, she went on and she knew that she'd be laid up for about 4 weeks in bed, recovering from that surgery the whole month of October in 2021. So what did she do? She logged in and she pre-scheduled all of her content for the month of October. So business never stopped. And people didn't even know that she was laid up in bed. They knew she was having surgery and she was now cancer-free, but they didn't know her recovery. They didn't know that she was, I had to help her walk to the shower. I had to, help her the way that I did. All they saw was the content that was going out across her social media platforms, and our business continued to grow and scale. So knowing that you have that taken off of your plate and you can actually focus on those things, which in this case was her health and her recovery, it's completely freeing. And I wish everybody had that kind of situation behind them where, again, they can take those things off of their plate and spend more time on the things that they truly want to spend them on.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear about a full and fast recovery. And the other thing is, it really is great not to have what I call content anxiety. That whole so just very quickly before we start to wrap up, what is your absolute number one top tip, not with the scheduling, but for actual content creation? What's the best type, or what do you see being the most effective in your business and in your clients?
So depending upon the platform that you choose, and if you're listening to this and you're in the coaching and consulting world, you first have to know where your target client avatar is hanging out. So if you're a coach and consultant and you work with more high-level business professionals or entrepreneurs that are, established and making a certain amount of income, and this is what I help people define, the average age of someone on Facebook and Instagram is 18 to 29, compared to that of LinkedIn, which is 25 to 55. Average income of someone on Facebook and Instagram is $30,000 a year or less, and the average income of someone on LinkedIn is $100,000 a year or more. But also, LinkedIn is 277% more effective for lead generation than Facebook. So you have to take these things into consideration. Now, once you define where your target market is, and for example purposes, and I'm assuming the coaches and consultants that are listening to this, you're looking to work with other high-level professionals and people that are coachable and driven, you're going to want to spend your time on LinkedIn. So if you were going to using that as an example and you were going to be using LinkedIn, what type of content should you create? The best type of content to create on LinkedIn, and there's different types. You can do posts, just like on any platform. You can do polls, which are market research based. You can do video, whether it's live or pre-recorded, and you can do long form articles or newsletters. No matter what you choose to do with the multitude of types of content that can be created on LinkedIn, it has to be one thing: value driven. People are looking for value. They're not looking to be sold and pitched to. They're not looking to be spammed. They're looking to be connected with. So the one thing that I always suggest people to do, and this goes back to something that I shared earlier in the conversation, is be a problem solver. Know full well that the people that you're looking to connect with and serve on LinkedIn are having problems. That's why you're the coach and the consultant that you are. You're looking to help bridge the gap between the problems that they have and give them the solution that's going to allow them to work out of that problem. And the best way to do that is when you're creating content, whatever mode and type of content that you choose to do on LinkedIn, make sure that it's solving a problem. Make sure that you are clearly defining an issue that you know full well your ideal client is having. So let me give you an example. So say that I know, and this is for the most part of people using LinkedIn. So I know for a fact that people are struggling generating leads on LinkedIn. I know for a fact. So an example post could be, 3 tips on how to leverage LinkedIn to generate consistent leads, right? So if I know that the types of people that I work with, which, coaches, consultants, high-level professionals, if I know they're struggling generating leads and I start providing relatable content that is speaking to their pain point where they read it and they're like, man, I really want to learn how to leverage LinkedIn to generate more consistent leads, I'm going to read what he has to say. And you just give value. You tell them exactly what they need to do. Tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, which tip did you find most valuable? Comment below which one and why. I haven't asked for anything. And that's the other key. True value-added content has no perceived outcome, meaning there's no hook at the end. There's no carrot that you're dangling. There's no sales pitch. You're just pouring into people. No one will ever buy anything from anyone that they don't know, like, and trust. And one of the best ways to establish credibility, trust, and rapport is consistently providing value-added content that you know very well in your heart that when it lands on the right eyes of the person that you're serving and it's value-driven and it's solution-oriented to a problem that they're having, guess who they're going to come knocking at whose door when the time is right to solve that problem? Yours. So if there's anything that I recommend you to do, especially if you're in the coaching and consulting world, which you and I are, and anyone that's listening to this, when you are putting content out on LinkedIn, make sure it solves the problems, make sure that it's value added, and make sure there's no hook at the end. It's purely just pouring into them, giving them hope that their problems can be solved.
Excellent. I couldn't agree with you more. It's so refreshing to actually hear somebody say at the end, to just give value without the hook. Because, we always like to include a call to action at the end of a post, but so often people take that literally and make it a sales pitch rather than a simple, as you said in that there, which of these is most useful. What it's just it's a call, maybe a call to engagement would be a better way to talk about it.
Yeah,
a call to action confuses people that they think
yeah.
they have to make a sales pitch.
Well, I think what people need to understand, call to action means ask your audience a question. That's all that it means. And people always say, well, Scott, how do I increase my engagement on social media? Well, ask people to engage. Every post that I make on LinkedIn, the last thing that person reads is a question to comment below what they took away from the post. So again, it's so people need to understand, to the reader of that post, it is so comforting to them knowing that all that person who created that content is looking for that person who read it to do is to just comment. They're not looking to, click some link or schedule some call or download this. They just want to hear from them. And that's a true servant leader. And that's who I consider me and myself being, is I want to hear from my people. I want to hear what they're struggling with. I want to hear the things that they're looking to improve. And if they don't comment, I can't get that. That's why I'm always asking, let me know in the comments below. What did you take away most from this? What is your big struggle? What was your aha moment? Because now they're revealing those things that are most impactful, which means I can create additional content from the feedback that they're giving me.
Absolutely. And once you've got that ball rolling, it makes the whole content anxiety goes away because your content is created based on the results of the previous content. Really
Yep.
does make life a whole lot easier. So I have to be honest, Scott, I could keep you here talking for hours. I'm not going to do that to you though. So before we do finally wrap up, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, somebody wants to work with you, would you like to share what the best way to do that is, how they can reach you?
Yep. So if anyone goes to my website, which is www.scottaaron.net, that's SCOTTAARON.net, you can find all the resources. My social links are on there. My podcast is on there, which Gail was a distinguished guest on my podcast, and you guys can listen to that episode as well. My newest book that came out in September, it's called the LinkedIn Book for Sales and Marketing. So for anyone that's looking to kind of get started and understand the sales and marketing organic tactics that I use on LinkedIn, you can actually order the book right off of my website or on Amazon. And again, if you just Google me, you'll be able to find a way to get in touch, whether it's my website or any of my social links, which I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and would love to connect.
Excellent. So what we'll do then is we'll collect all of those links and add them to the show notes. So we'll strip the Google step out of that and make sure that people can access all of your links right from wherever they're listening.
Perfect.
And before we close, is there anything else that you would like to say that I didn't ask you? Or I have one last question.
Yeah. So I always like letting people know that, life and business are not a straight line, as I mentioned before. And when you can adopt the concept that your failures open the doors to your successes, and you understand that the peak of one mountain is the valley of the next, you're going to enjoy the process and your life so much more, because the more often that you fail, the more often you're going to learn how to succeed. And if you know that there's no peak to the mountain, you're always going to be climbing, which means you're always going to be getting better and better each day.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. And hopefully one of these days, not too far distant, I hope we can get you back and chat again.
Well, would love that. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.